You just want to make sure you're paying attention. Guys, summer is here. If you didn't feel it already, it is here, right? And summer, you know what that means? It's hot. Which means that the afternoon is primed for napping. Oh, I like that. The pool could be an option, but I'm going to say movies, okay? And the reason I'm going to say movies, because it's in the AC, and it's in the AC that the Lord meets us in the afternoon, okay? Now, of course, in preparation for this week and for our series, I decided to dip into something that we had watched before, which was Inside Out, okay? Now, Inside Out hit me differently this time, okay? If you don't know a little bit about Inside Out, I know you were planning to watch it this afternoon, but I'm about to give you a little bit of a spoiler, okay? By the way, there's 2 out, so I'm going to spoil the first one so that you can go ahead and just jump into number 2. But what happens is there's this daughter, Riley, that moves from one city to the next. And the entire first half of the movie, she is trying to keep it together for her parents. But what she is not able to process is the emotions of the move. And so what happens is she kind of loses her joy in the middle of all of that. And what happens is her emotions don't just go away. And what they begin to do is they begin to take over in unexpected ways. Ultimately to the point where she ends up running away. Or she tries to run away. She packs her bags. She goes to the bus stop. We've all had this moment probably as a kid. We don't know where that is, so we're just going to leave. And it's not until her parents find her and she finally says the truth, I miss home and I'm not okay, that she begins to heal. You know, this is a kid's movie, but it tells a very adult truth. When we ignore our emotions, they don't disappear. They just get louder in different ways. And for most of us, we've learned to deal with emotions in 2 different unhealthy ways. One, we suppress them, believing maturity means silence and control. Or we exalt them, letting emotions drive us, define us, and dictate what is real. We either bury the fire or we let it burn wild. But neither extreme leads to healing. You ever wondered why people, when they're lost, they start a fire? Because fire makes smoke, and smoke gets noticed. Doesn't matter how far off they are, how thick the trees are, or the smoke rises, and what it rises, it calls out. It's a signal. I'm here. I need help. Come and find me. Emotions are like smoke. They signal the evidence that something deeper is happening inside of us. You can try to seal them. You can try to pretend that they're not there, but they'll always find a way out. A sharp word, a quiet withdrawal, a meltdown when you didn't see it coming. St. Augustine once said, our emotions are the smoke from the fire of our disordered loves. Get this, emotions are not the enemy. They're not a distraction from spiritual life. They are part of it. They are God-given, not just a warning, but they're a signal of the soul calling out for rescue. The problem isn't that we feel. The problem is that we've stopped listening to what our emotions are trying to say. We've learned to hide, to fake, to minimize. But that is not holiness. That is not maturity. That is hiding. That's why we're going to begin this new series, The God Who Feels. Now, if you're new to Harbor City, let me walk you through what we are doing this year. We are in a year of Build Your Life, where we are looking to see 1,000 yeses to Jesus, meaning that we're saying yes in 5 different areas. We want to say yes in our emotional health, which is what this series is going to talk about, in our relational health, in our spiritual health, in our physical health, or in our financial health. And in order to lay the theological groundwork, what we've done is we've walked through the first 3 chapters of Genesis to understand the design of how God has made the world. And then We have looked at the Ten Commandments to understand how God has designed the world to best operate, and mostly so that it's designed us to be in a relationship with Him. Therefore, now we are going to jump into emotions. Because emotional health is not about faking peace or being ruled by feeling. It's about honesty, clarity, and healing. It's about learning to feel fully and respond wisely. It's about bringing your whole heart to God who made it. Each week we're going to explore some of the core emotions God has wired into us, what it's saying, what lies we believe about it, and what the gospel speaks to it. Now, in this series, I actually want to recommend something. This has helped shape our entire series. This is a book by Chip Dodd. It's The Voice of the Heart, A Call to Full Living. See, Chip Dodd, he is a counselor who wrote this book where he talks about 8 core emotions. These 8 emotions are the signals that is speaking to our heart to address the deep things that we need. And get this, what he says is emotion is a gift, not a curse. For example, our emotion of hurt shows that we need healing. Loneliness tells you that you were made for connection. Sadness lets you honor what was lost. Anger reveals an injustice or that something is wrong. Fear reminds you that you're not in control. Shame warns you that something is broken inside. Guilt calls you to make things right. And gladness reminds you of what's good. Now, yes, sin twists these things, but emotion itself is not the problem. See, sin can twist our emotions to the point of making them ultimate, and when emotions become ultimate and when they dictate our truth and identity apart from God and community, they are disordered. This is not the fault of emotion itself, but how we respond to it. Because we're so scared of this, we have more often than not gotten into a pattern of suppressing emotion. However, both extremes are the effects of the fall on our emotions. However, God didn't just come to redeem the polished version of you. He came to redeem all of you, including your emotions. Emotional health isn't something extra to the gospel. It's part of it. I'll give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you, Ezekiel 36:26. See, the Bible is filled with raw emotions. Look at the man after God's own heart, David. He wrote these words. Get this. Why are you downcast, O my soul? My God, why have you forsaken me? I am worn out from groaning. He didn't fake this. He prayed it. That's worship. Or Jesus in Gethsemane, sorrowful to the point of death, he sweat blood, and he still said, not my will, but yours. That's maturity. Not the absence of emotion, but the surrender of it. See, Jesus didn't just come to clean you up. He came to make you whole, to restore your humanity, to help you feel again, to help you love again, to help you live again. So today, if you find yourself numb or angry or you're tired of pretending, I want to tell you, you're not disqualified. You're invited. Emotions are a signal for you to find your home in God, because that is where Jesus is waiting. Now, that was the introduction to our series. Let me pray and start our sermon, okay? Father, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for what you are doing. And Lord, we ask that you would come to us right now and let us see what you have to teach us from John chapter 4. In Jesus' precious holy name, amen. See, today we are going to look at John 4, where Jesus met the Samaritan woman. Now, this is a familiar passage to many of us, and I've heard many sermons that have explored the racial, social, and even theological barriers which Jesus shatters with the truth of the gospel. In this story, we see Jesus proclaiming the gospel is for all peoples and all situations at all times. However, just like an onion, this story has layers. So in studying this story with the lens of emotional health, provides insight into the human heart. And it shows that we are longing for and that how we try to satisfy that longing. In particular, we're going to look at the feelings of being lonely and hurt. See, that was the experience of the woman at the well. Now, to be clear, these aren't the only feelings that she experienced, but they are prominent in this story. And so as we look more closely, what you will see is that your story looks at her story. We'll recognize parts of our journey in hers. And as we see the words that Jesus spoke to her, we'll feel deeply and personal as if he is saying them to us today. Caroline Saunders, she's an author and Bible teacher. She actually is coming this fall to the Delight Women's Conference. Women, I would encourage you to go to that. But in particular, to this subject, this is what she says. Jesus doesn't just tolerate your emotions, he meets you in them. We're going to see today in the story that he is going to meet the woman right where she is. So our main point is our loneliness and hurt reveal a deeper need that only the gospel can meet, to be truly known, deeply loved, and wholly healed in Christ. John chapter 4, verse 1. Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well, and it was about the 6th hour. The 6th hour meaning it was about 12 in the afternoon. Notice in verse 4, it says that Jesus had to pass through Samaria. The Son of God didn't have to. Like Jesus, he didn't have to, right? Like he could have done a couple things. He had a couple options. He could do what all the other Jews did, and he could add 3 days to his journey, and they could walk around Samaria, okay? Or, I don't know, he could have apparated. You know, he didn't have to walk through Samaria. There's a theological conundrum that's here of why did he have to? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask that question. I'm going to let that linger with you. I'm going to take that question. I'm going to put it right here on a shelf, okay? We're going to come pick that up here in a little bit. So what we have is the reason that they would walk around Samaria is that we see a people who experienced loneliness and hurt. What do I mean? Well, around 900 BC, the people who lived in Samaria, what they were actually the northern kingdom of Israel. And the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, that's actually the time that they actually split into the two kingdoms. And in our Bible timeline, we see that the northern kingdom was actually taken into captivity before the southern kingdom was. And when they got taken into captivity, the people that took them captive came in and lived in that area. And the reason that they would do that is because a part of taking over a people and taking them to captivity is to rob them of their ethnicity. So they came and they intermarried with them, and they introduced their gods with them, and they confused the worship that they had with the true God. And then, later on, they would continue to kind of lose that identity, and what became is the nation or the area of Samaria. And they became known as, and this is very derogatory, half-breeds. If they were in Harry Potter, they'd be mudbloods, right? And so what they are is they don't have this ethnicity that they've always had. And then all of a sudden, what we then see is we see that they even tried to come back and help rebuild the temple when the southern kingdom came back. But what happened is the Jews said, no, you've intermarried, you're not one of us, you are different in ethnicity now, and we are going to reject you. And so now you have centuries of hurt and loneliness to a people who have been robbed of their ethnicity and then told that they cannot come back into what God has taken. And so you can see it in the middle of a people who are hurt and lonely is a woman who is hurt and lonely. Look at verse 7. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? for Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would give you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come to draw water." This brings us to our first point. Our loneliness signals a longing to be known. Our loneliness signals a longing to be known. The woman comes to the well at noon, when no one else would be there. Her isolation is both social and emotional. If you're going to go for a walk with a huge vessel of water, when do you want to carry it? At 7 a.m. when the dew is freshly on the ground, or at 12 when someone turned up the humidity? We're all too familiar with that at this point. So why would she come at noon? Likely because coming in the heat of the day was worth the physical exhaustion, because she could not take the emotional toil in the presence of others anymore. She was tired of the whispers, the pointed fingers, the sideways glances, the sting of being the punchline to everyone's conversation. The emotional weight of being around others had become heavier than the heat of the sun. So she came when no one else would. Loneliness is more than being alone. It's the ache of not being seen, known, or understood. Chip Dodd would say that loneliness is the feeling that lets us know that we were made for connection. Another author says that because we're created to be filled, we hate feeling empty. However, when those connections we desire are letting us down, whether it's the woman's intimate relationships or the people who she is avoiding, we see her retreating from what her heart is calling her for. Sometimes we can be so burned in relationship that we just want to avoid them, and so we disconnect, we retreat, and we hide. We know because of what is revealed in just a few short verses that this woman longs for connection, as she has had 5 different husbands, and this man that she is with is now not her husband. At some point, we have experienced the loneliness that this woman felt. Certain situations make us feel it more prominently than others. Often it's that deep ache for connection that stirs our longing for intimacy. And not just physical intimacy, but the kind where you are known and loved completely. What does this look like? Well, you serve and you give in many different areas. At work, at the church, in the home. Does anyone notice? It took all you could just to come to church today because you missed that loved one. Does anyone see how hard it has been? You enter the mundane daily life at home, washing clothes, cooking, cleaning, all for it to just cycle over and over again. Does anyone see? You break your back at work just to provide food and a future. It's hard. You're burned out. Does anyone know? You've been burned again. The person that you thought was the one has decided that you're not. The breakup was hard, but showing up to the next event without that person is even harder because now you have to answer the questions. Does anyone see you? That place that was supposed to provide connection and relationship, the church, has burned you once again. Someone tried to band-aid your feelings with another Bible verse and essentially telling you to be better, do better, and get over it for God's sake. Will anyone ever see you? Have you ever felt the longing, being in a room full of people, and yet you feel entirely alone? That feeling is what will make you stay home when everyone else is gathered at the well. But remember, this feeling is a signal pointing you to a deep longing to be known. And yes, people have let you down. It's understandable to see that this woman's response, and it's understandable that you also want to withdraw. But I don't want you to just sit there. I want to invite you into something. What if Jesus enters the relationship? What happens when he enters the feelings? Because that's actually what Jesus does. He initiates by asking her for a drink. Now, this wasn't just awkward, it was unthinkable. But what is uncomfortable in the initiation of this conversation is because he wants to actually bring comfort to this woman. Sometimes stepping into a relationship is awkward, and it's especially hard because we bring baggage, but it's the first step that we have to take. The woman is shocked, and she responds with a tone that feels a bit sharp. You? A Jew? Asking me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink? That's not just surprise. That's sarcasm. Perhaps it's even apathy, as if someone else is actually going to talk to her again. When you've been let down over and over, you start to believe that no one really sees you, and if they do, they'll only reject you. But Jesus doesn't respond with correction. He responds with invitation. If you knew the gift of God, you'd be asking me for living water. Yet the woman resists. You don't even have a bucket, she says. And that's where many of us live too. When emotional needs go unmet long enough, we learn to guard ourselves. We build walls to protect our heart. We say things like, I don't care. Does it really matter anymore? Whatever. What's the difference anyway? Not because we're fine, but because we're tired. We're tired of being hurt. Jesus goes on to explain the difference between well water and living water. He gives water that satisfies. And finally, the woman is like, sir, give me this water. But she's still thinking about physical water. You can feel her exhaustion. Her desire for this water may not be just about physical thirst. It's also about escaping the daily shame of walking to this well alone. There's one way not to be reminded of what she lacks. She'll take it. She's not just thirsty. She's weary. And what Jesus does next is he doesn't jump ahead. He doesn't rebuke. He just moves gently beneath the surface of her sarcasm and her defenses. And he reaches deeper into the hurt. Because that's how emotions work. They're not simple. They're layered and they're complex. The makers of Inside Out got this right. Our emotional lives are rarely just one thing. Hurt often lives under loneliness. Anger often masks fear. Sadness sits beneath shame. And Jesus doesn't stop at what's visible. He listens to what her heart is really saying. And what he hears is pain. I've tried. I've trusted. I've been left behind. And he moves towards it. Why? Because hurt is the feeling that tells the truth that we long to be healed. Look at verse 16. Jesus said to her, go call your husband and come here. The woman answered him, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you are right in saying I have no husband, for you have 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. Notice that Jesus goes to the point of her hurt. Our hurt, point number 2, signals that we need to be healed. Our hurt signals that we need to be healed. He says, go call your husband. In other words, for you to experience true spiritual and emotional healing, you have to go to the place of hurt and be honest with it. Pastor Matt Chandler says to be 99% known is to be unknown. That often we are hiding this 1%, and if people can just see the rest of us and we don't really deal with that, then we never really have to worry about it. But the reality is if we are never truly known, we are not known at all, and there is no healing that can come when we are trying to hide it. Hurt leaves wounds, and when you touch a wound, you either recoil or you want to punch the person in the face who touched it. Often we get in our Christian circles and we're scared to acknowledge actual pain because we don't want others to see that, or we're worried that people do not know how to handle it. And the truth is, sometimes people don't. But healing doesn't come from them feeling what is broken. Healing comes from being immersed in the truth of the gospel, where you are seen, known, and loved by God. And the people of God, when honest and present, can be the soil where that healing takes place. Often when I've read this story, I see a woman in the pattern of sin who needs to be saved. And Jesus is the one who provides that salvation. And that's actually not inaccurate. This woman is in a pattern of sin who needs to be saved. But when I look a little closer at the context, I noticed that it says husband. Was this woman involved in sin? Yes, but we can humanize her for a moment. That the reality is there's just not a lot of information we know. And the fact that it names that she desired a husband says at one point she desired one person that she could be with for the rest of her life. We don't know if one died. We don't know how everything worked. We don't know if she was unfaithful, if he was unfaithful, if it was a conglomeration of all those things, and that's probably pretty likely. But what we see is that the reality is that wounds can come from our mistakes, they can come from others, or they can come just from the fact that the world is fallen and the effects of sin affect us even when it's not intentional. Our wounds are real. And so when Jesus says, go get your husband, he's asking her to go to that place of hurt. It's like him saying to us, go get your addiction. Go get your secret. Go get your broken relationship. Go get your anger at your spouse or your silence toward your friend. Go get the wound you carry from your father or your mother. Go get the job that gives you identity but drains your soul. Go get the shame that you've buried so deep that no one knows it's there. Go get the thing that hurt you so badly that you never, ever want to talk about it again. And he doesn't do this to shame the woman, and he doesn't do this to shame you. He says it to free you. Why? Because he invites your deepest hurt not to expose it, but to heal it. You see, often a step of healing in the hurt is going to that place that hurts and bringing it into the light. Because if it is kept in the darkness, you cannot actually be known, and you cannot satisfy the need and desire to be fully known and loved. Author Jackie Hill Perry says, God is not intimidated by your pain. He entered into it. And then verse 19, the woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. And this is an obvious statement. Yeah, that's the understatement of the century. When someone reads your mail like that, when they call out and be like, I know that you have this, yes, he is a prophet. Actually, he's more than that, and you're about to find out. Verse 20, our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say in Jerusalem is the place where we ought to worship. You know what she's doing? Hiding. She deflected. And here's what's even crazier. She deflected with theology. You know, that's kind of scary, church, that we in a church can actually deflect what is actually going on with theology so that we don't have to worry about it anymore. We say things like, well, everything happens for a reason, without actually dealing with the feeling and the longing that it's actually asking for. So we don't feel, we Band-Aid. You even see this when you're interacting with someone and you're trying to tell them about Jesus. In that moment that they begin to feel some kind of conviction, they deflect to some kind of topic on the age. Well, what about those who haven't heard? What's going to happen to them? And even that is a deflection from the truth of God actually dealing with your hurt and longing. And that's what she's doing here. But Jesus answers. Jesus said to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. Your worship what you do not know, but we worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship. Verse 24, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, he who is called the Christ, and when he comes, he will tell us all things. Jesus is saying what you're actually going to do is you're going to worship in spirit and truth. In spirit, meaning everything that you are, everything that God has made you, with your feelings, with the core and innermost being, with the spirit being put inside of you. That is how people are going to worship. But it's not just that alone. It's spirit and truth, meaning in the way that I am revealing myself to you. He doesn't quite say I am yet, but the way that God has revealed himself. Not in what he acknowledges, hey, actually what you're saying, your theology is wrong, but it's not about an answer to your question. It's about a signal to your heart. And what you're going to do is you're going to worship one day with all of you are for God and all who he has revealed himself to be. And that is how we will worship in spirit and in truth. We won't be ruled by emotions, but we will answer the heart cry, and that heart cry is coming in this very next verse. Point number 3 is this. Jesus satisfies what our emotions signal that we need. See, this woman, she tried to shift to a religious debate, but Jesus redirects her to a relationship. The call for her is to be known and loved by being a worshiper in spirit and truth, the truth of God revealing himself. And so in verse 26, this is what he says. And Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. See, you know what he does? In the book of John, this is the very first time he does this. He doesn't even do this to Nicodemus, the guy in chapter 3. What he does is he reveals to this woman, a Samaritan, who's not even a part of the Jewish sect. And what he says, I am is speaking to you. In other words, she reveals the very special name that was revealed to Moses, and she would recognize this. What his claim is that he is the Christ. See, throughout the conversation, Jesus has exposed her wounds of isolation, but now he offers the one thing she desperately needs. Jesus doesn't just offer the answer, he offers himself. She doesn't just hear about the truth, she meets the truth. Her thirst isn't quenched by theology alone, but by a relationship with the living God. He doesn't just explain life to her, he enters it. In that moment, the well wasn't just a place of water, it became a place of worship. And the Messiah isn't just revealed, he is going to be received. I am wasn't just an idea to believe, but a presence to be embraced. See, Jesus is not the answer to your emotions. He is the answer your emotions are pointing you toward. Let me say that again. Jesus is not the answer to your emotions. He's the answer your emotions are pointing you toward. See, what happened is I am stepped in her story. See, what the enemy would want us to believe about our loneliness is that I'm invisible. But Jesus says to you, I see you. The enemy would have you say, I'm not worth pursuing. But Jesus said, I had to come through Samaria for you. The enemy would say, no one would choose to stay with you. And Jesus would say, I am the one who draws near. The enemy would say, if people really knew me, they'd leave. And Jesus says, I know you completely, and I am here. The enemy would take hurt and say that no one can really love the real you. But Jesus says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. The enemy would say, you're too much, you're too needy, you're too wounded, damaged. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. The enemy would say, you've been abandoned by the ones who should have stayed. And Jesus says, I will never leave you or forsake you. The enemy would say that you're too broken to be whole again. And Jesus says, behold, I make all things new. And when your pain rises up with questions, does anyone really see me? Will anyone want to stay? Can anything heal this? Jesus responds not with a sermon, he responds with his name, his very presence, and he says, I am with you. It's not a quick fix. It's not a religious answer. It's just Jesus, the one who is, the I am. And here's what's important. Notice that he offers this, and she hasn't even repented yet. You know why this is important? Because you don't have to heal yourself and then come to Jesus. You don't have to get it together. You can bring your marriage, you can bring your relationships, you can bring the thing that is so hidden that you don't even want to speak it out loud. You can say it to Jesus. You can bring it to him. You can hand him your feelings, your hurt, and your loneliness, because he will know you completely, and in him you will be loved completely. Jesus doesn't recoil at your worst moments. He looks at you and he says, I am. Come to me. In me, you'll find everything your heart has been looking for. Being known and loved by him is where healing begins. Emotional honesty is the way to God, not a barrier from him. You know, this is such good news to the woman that she leaves the very thing she came for. You ever go to a store and you forget the thing because all of a sudden you got excited about something else? Well, she was excited about Jesus. She actually did have a wellspring of living water coming up in her, and she goes and she says, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. This shows us our fourth point. The gospel frees us to experience the gift of healing, being known, and fully loved. She can speak freely now because she is deeply known and truly loved. What she once sought in so many other relationships, she now has acceptance in Jesus. And in him, she has found her healing. Isn't it interesting that the woman that was avoiding everyone is running into the crowds where everyone is? Why? Because Jesus met her in her feelings. What once she felt as rejection and apathy and resentment is now born in hope because she's fully known and loved by the Messiah. Here's what's beautiful, and it's even wild, that when you are healed, you become someone who can carry peace into the lives of others. Yes, your scars can remain, but they no longer define you. They become proof of healing and a pathway to help others find the same hope and restoration. I'm going to ask the worship team to come forward, and I want to lead us in a time of response. I want you to remember something. Do you remember that question we put on the shelf? He had to go through Samaria. Let me go pick it up. Let's look at it right here. He had to. Do you know why he had to? Because he was not compelled to leave us right where we are. He was the only one who could actually meet the woman at the well where she needed to be met. And he's the only one that can actually meet you as well. He had to go there for her sake. And get this, the woman at the well is not just a story about her. It's about us. It's about you. It's about me. Our emotions, especially loneliness and hurt, are not problems to fix, but signals to pay attention to. And get this. He didn't just go out of his way to meet a broken woman at the well. He went all the way to the cross. Why? Because he had to. He had to. He became the spring of eternal life, quenching thirst forever because he went to the cross. He once prayed, if it's possible to let this cup pass from me, yet my will but yours be done. Why? Because he had to. Not out of obligation, but out of love. A love so deep and determined for you that he would bear the weight of shame and rejection and sin just so you could be made whole again. He did it to give you the connection your soul aches for, the healing your wounds cry out for. He went to the well to meet you, but he went to the cross to heal you. Because only through his wounds could your deepest longings be truly satisfied. I want to invite you to a response. With every head bowed and every eye closed, and I want you just to pray to God right now. I want you to respond to him. I want you to hear from him. See, if you're here today carrying loneliness and feeling invisible, rejected, or unseen, or if your heart is bursting and hurting from wounds, broken relationships, or shame, Jesus invites you to bring them to him. He isn't afraid of your pain or your questions. He doesn't turn away when you feel unlovable or forgotten. He says to you, I am. I'm the one who sees you. I'm the one who knows you. I'm the one who loves you. And how can you know that? Because he went to the cross for you. He died for you. He bled for you. And he arose so that you might be connected with him. So right now, I want you to name your loneliness and hurt before God. Tell him what you are feeling, even if it's raw or messy. And ask Jesus to meet you where you are. Maybe you're here and this is the first time that you've even considered becoming a Christian because there is a God who has met you right where you are. There's a God who loves you, and it's the first time you've realized that you could be loved, that you could be known, that he's not scared of who you are and what you've done. It's the first time you've heard that you don't have to have yourself together to come to Jesus. The invitation for you today is that you can come to Jesus. Say yes to him. Receive his presence and love. And if you want to pray this silently now, just pray this, anybody who's in the room. Jesus, I bring my loneliness and hurt to you. I believe that you see me and you love me. And I say yes to put myself in your hands today. That you would heal my heart. And I trust that I can be fully known and loved by you. Church, it's in our deepest wounds that God's grace becomes most evident, because it's in Christ's wounds that his grace is most fully revealed. In Jesus, you are fully known, deeply loved, and wholly healed. So we're going to move into a time of response, and we're going to sing a worship song. That song is Come to the Altar, and I'm actually going to ask a few of you if you would come forward and receive others who might need prayer. Y'all just come right now, and you can stand right in the front of this altar. And while we sing this song, that you would, an invitation is here, is sometimes that hurt and that loneliness just feels too heavy, that you don't even have the words that you can pray yourself. The people that are here to just pray with you, to worship with you, and to love you, and to pray the gospel over you in this moment. So if you need that, I want to invite you that this is a safe place that you can come to the altar. You can come to a place of healing, and you can begin to ask for prayer. Even if you've been in the church your entire life, you don't have to say that I have it all together. You can come for prayer. Because we understand and we know. Sometimes we just need that calling. Because God is here to meet with you. I want to invite you to respond in whatever posture that you need. If you need to stay into a posture of prayer, please do that. If you want to stand and sing, please do that. Let the words and the invitation